Welcome to the Menopause Unplugged podcast with me, your host, Nikki Oliveira. On this podcast, we will hear from women who are navigating the challenging and transformative journey of perimenopause and menopause. These women have graciously agreed to share their stories and insights, offering a raw and honest glimpse into what it's like to go through this major life transition. From hot flushes to rediscovering themselves, our guests will provide a wealth of knowledge and inspiration for anyone who's going through or will go through menopause. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and join us for a fascinating and enlightening discussion. Welcome to the Menopause Unplugged podcast, and we are now at episode 7. And today in the studio, I have the lovely Rachel with me. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi.
Hi. So Rachel is currently postmenopausal. So Rachel, tell me how we got to this point. Tell me your story.
Well, I always kind of say when people ask me, I always say that I kind of crash landed into menopause because I kind of didn't really know essentially what was going on, which I think is the position for a lot of women actually of my age.
Yes.
Because according to obviously the doctor that I spoke to, I had, what's known as early onset menopause,
Okay.
because I wasn't 45 essentially. I am now. So yeah, I think it towards my sort of the end of my 40th year, I kind of noticed that my temper had got an awful lot shorter. And little things were making me really cross. And I'm not a cross person. I'm a really placid person. And I sort of, I just noticed that I seemed to be literally flying into a rage over the smallest of things. And I kind of thought, well, this is a bit odd. I sort of brushed it aside.
Yeah.
And then kind of I sort of then started having waking up in the middle of the night feeling absolutely boiling. And I am not a boiling person. I am a very cold person. But I've got Raynaud's, so my fingers are always freezing.
Right.
And I was waking up in the night absolutely soaked, thinking, oh crikey, this is a bit crazy. Is it my bed sheets? Am I, what are they made of? Thinking of all these other things that it could be. And so that happened for, I would say, about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I mean, I was on the contraceptive pill at the time. And I kind of time was passing like it does. And I sort of thought one particular day, I thought, God, I haven't had a bleed for what seems like ages. Maybe I should, get a pregnancy test. So I did, and obviously that came back negative. I thought, oh well, maybe it's just the pill, because sometimes, I'd been on it for years, and sometimes I would go through sort of periods of not having any bleed, and then they'd come back again, and I just put that down to the pill I was on.
Sure.
Anyway, I was due an annual pill check, so of course I went to see my family planning nurse, who dealt with all the pills. And I sort of said to her, look, I haven't had a bleed for quite a while. I couldn't remember actually how long it had been. And she said, oh, it's fine. It's probably just the pill. We'll take you off it for 3 months, and we'll, see if you self-regulate. And I kind of tracked back in my, calendar to see actually exactly how long at that point I hadn't had a bleed.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was about 6 months in total. And I thought, well, okay, so 3 months, maybe I'll kind of, my system will reset essentially. But it didn't. It didn't. And within that 3 months that I was off of the pill, I had a barrage of
Oh,
symptoms.
goodness me.
I had, it was crazy. So the rage intensified greatly. I had way more night sweats. I was boiling in the day, and my brain felt like mush. It literally felt like when I was in the last trimester of both my pregnancies and the first sort of 3 months of them being born. It felt like baby brain. I really thought that my head was just going crazy. I kept forgetting things, all the little things. Like, the whole thing where people say, oh, I've walked into a room and I can't remember why I'm here. Well, there was that. But there was also, I'd be in the middle of a conversation and I wouldn't actually know what on earth I was talking about.
Oh my goodness.
And it was quite scary.
Yeah.
It was scary. So anyway, obviously these 3 months passed and still no bleed.
Mhm.
So of course by this point it had essentially been 9 months without a bleed.
Sure.
And obviously, you know, I went back to see the family planning nurse.
Mhm.
And I said, look, nothing has happened. And in fact, this has happened. And I kind of reeled off all the things that were going on. And I was really teary
Yeah.
because my emotions were all over the place. And she said, I think actually you probably ought to speak to the family planning GP. She's a menopause specialist. And I went,
Ah.
a what? She said, well, she's a menopause specialist. And I said, yeah, but I'm only 41. I was 41 at that point.
Yeah.
I said, I'm only 41. She went, yeah, well, that's kind of why you need to speak to the doctor about it, because it could be
Mm.
that, or it could be something completely different. So anyway, fortunately for me, my family planning GP is also actually my own GP.
I see.
And she was amazing. And I can't fault her. She was absolutely amazing. She was so understanding. She didn't just want to prescribe me antidepressants, which seems to be a thing.
Yes.
Um,
Very much.
and she went through everything, and she kind of, she asked me what my symptoms were and had I been keeping track of them, and I had actually started keeping a journal because my head was all over the place. I had to start writing things down.
Mhm.
And anyway, I had a great appointment with her, and she said, well, look, she said, because you are not 45, she said, we really ought to take some bloods.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we can see what's going on with your hormones. So I think they tested my thyroid and a couple of other things. And then she also said, and we'll check your FSH levels, which essentially is the group of hormones that they look for when they test to see if you are in that kind of perimenopausal, menopausal phase.
Yeah.
And she said, but I will warn you. She said, it won't be just one blood test. And I'm a needle phobic. So that was music to my ears. Not. So I said, no, okay, that's fine. So in actual fact, over the period of the following 3 months,
Yeah.
it took 3 different blood tests before the final one came back to show that my my hormone levels were kind of, well, essentially menopausal.
Yeah.
And because obviously it goes to the hospital, and they sent her a letter back saying, yep, treat as menopausal.
Right.
So not perimenopausal, menopausal. And I said, okay, so what does that mean now then?
Yeah.
She said, well, because it has actually now been 12 months without a bleed, you are effectively menopausal.
Mhm.
Although over this past few years, having set up my little Facebook group and spoken to lots of women and other kind of medical professionals, I have since obviously discovered that you are only menopausal for 24 hours.
Yes.
You only have a menopause on one day, and the day after that, you are forever known as postmenopausal. So essentially, that's what I am now, postmenopausal.
Yes.
So then we had to talk about, where do I go from here? What do I do in terms of treatment?
Mhm.
So she was fantastic. She put loads of like statistics and graphs and things up on the computer for me to have a look at, because obviously I know there is risk involved. Well, there's risk involved with any medication that you take.
Mhm.
But essentially, because I had been on the pill for so many years of my life, I was already taking a risk where breast cancer is concerned, because there is a small risk with the contraceptive
Of
pill
course.
of breast cancer.
Yeah.
And she showed me the statistics, and actually it's exactly the same risk having being on HRT as it was being on the pill in terms of that kind of cancer. And I said, well, that's not really a risk for me then, because essentially I've been taking that for the past 30 years.
Yeah.
So and I'm okay now. So that didn't bother me. What bothered me was I wanted some way of controlling the craziness that was going on in my body.
Mhm.
So I ended up being prescribed some patches, and they were estrogen patches
Yeah.
and progesterone capsule.
Mhm.
But I didn't really get on with the patches. They didn't seem to make any difference, and I was sick of the black marks everywhere and them falling off
From the
and me forgetting
stickiness.
to change them and all of that.
Yeah.
It didn't work for me. Uh, obviously I went back to see her, and she then put me on the gel,
Mhm.
which has been an absolute game changer. So I am now currently on the estrogen gel, progesterone capsule, and obviously further down the line, after a couple of years, I started experiencing vaginal dryness.
Yeah.
So I obviously went back, and I now have a pessary as well. And at the minute, touch wood, I'm all kind of a level, and my symptoms are really kind of they've got a lot less, and I'm kind of ticking along in my menopausal journey quite happily.
Wonderful. Great. So was the gel is the estrogen gel then a similar sort of dosage to your patches then? It's just a different obviously preparation.
Yeah, initially it was. So when she put me on the HRT, she said, I don't, we won't put you on the lowest dose, but we kind of need somewhere to go. So they put me on like the second to lowest dose. But I'm now somewhere in the middle, because about 18 months ago, I went back, and because my night sweats had started again, and she just said, "Oh well, we'll just increase your pump to another." So I was on 2 pumps a day, and now I'm on 3 pumps a day, and I don't know how kind of high that can go, but essentially, if I'm postmenopausal, then in theory, I should be reaching excuse me, I should be reaching some kind of plateau, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's way easier for me to manage with the gel, because it's just, every morning stick it on, and that's it, you're done. So
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And it's so good that you didn't have to do too much trial and error to get something that works for you, which is amazing. And really good though that
yeah.
you've had such amazing support from your GP as well. It really helps.
Yeah, she has been fantastic. Yeah, she has been fantastic, because I know uh, I've got so many kind of different experiences from other women that have said, oh, it was a nightmare, or I couldn't find something that worked, and it took me months and months, or worse still, I was just prescribed antidepressants. And I know for my mum, so my mum had a hysterectomy very early on. She was in her 30s, I think, mid to late 30s, when she had a hysterectomy, but that was because of other kind of issues that she had with having heavy periods and whatnot. And she'd had all her children by then. So, but essentially, because she had like an early life hysterectomy, we had I had nothing to go on in terms of when my mum would have gone through menopause. Naturally, as such. But actually, on talking to her about it over the past sort of few years, and thinking about when she was kind of in her sort of early 40s, 41, 42, she definitely went through, well, I think now anyway, she definitely was going through those perimenopausal symptoms, because she still had her ovaries when she had a hysterectomy.
Right.
So essentially she still had the capability to go, her body still had the right bits to go through the menopause. And she definitely went through that phase, but she was given antidepressants, and she was told that she was depressed. And I remember it clear as day. And and I'm just so glad that my GP, that wasn't her kind of, stock answer. Oh well, we'll just give you antidepressants. I think I was very lucky to speak to the GP that I spoke to, and for her to have been so kind of, on the ball with menopause.
100%, yeah. I think more and more GPs are going through sort of specialist menopausal training, so I think we can only see that improve as time goes on, which is great.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
Yeah, because obviously I did a little bit of research into the menopause in in training for doctors, and I was amazed to read that previously it wasn't, it's not part of their kind of oh, what's the word, sorry, brain going dead, it's not part of their like, they don't have to do it, is what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
to.
it's not part of their main teaching.
It's not part of their curriculum,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah, it's not. They don't have to learn about it. They can specialize in it if they want. But essentially, to me, that seems totally backwards, because every single person on the planet, one way or another, is going to be affected either directly or indirectly by menopause. So it should be something that trainee doctors learn about.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, they do learn about other, sort of hormonal changes and, other endocrine,
Yeah,
issues. So, yeah,
yeah.
it should 100% be
Yeah, it
mandatory.
just, it beggars belief that that's not, yeah, that's not just part of, the standard bit of training that you go through. Because I mean, it's the same at schools. You know, I was never told anything about the menopause at secondary school. It was just, you know, all we got was, you know, you'd have your sex and relationships education when you were in secondary school, and you'd learn about periods and all of the other stuff. And then at the end of that, you would get, and when a woman comes to the end of her fertility, she goes through the menopause. Full stop.
Yeah.
That was it. Like it was just a little thing that you know, you drift through and then you're done.
Yeah. I don't even think that I remember even them mentioning that you go through menopause. I think it was all just, this is your period. This is what you can expect if you've not already got yours. And I think
Yeah.
that was about it. So yeah, I think there
Gosh.
needs to be a bit more awareness, definitely aimed at school age children for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, most definitely. I know my younger sister, she's 7 years younger than me. She actually teaches, well, currently she teaches secondary school over in
Mm.
Bangkok. And obviously she's been kind of, because we're very close, and I tell her all of my kind of foibles and whatnot with going through this as a way of preparing her, essentially.
Of
And
course,
on the
yeah.
back of that, she's actually she spoke to the staff at the school that she teaches at in Bangkok and said, look, you know, this is something we really need to get on top of, and we really should be putting this into our curriculum for our you know, for our students when they're doing their PSHE. They need to know about this. And I think fortunately for that school, that's now part of that's now part of what they teach.
Amazing.
But it's so important. It really is so important to know about, you know. I have this scene in my head now. So I don't know if you've seen the film Carrie by Stephen King.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so if you can get a hold of it, it's an old film. It's from, you know, like late 70s, I think. But it's an amazing film. But there is a scene in that where Carrie is a young teenager, and she's gone into the showers in PE, and she has her first period, and she thinks she's dying because she
Ah,
doesn't know what it is.
of
And
course.
it's like that kind of shock is almost kind of what, you know, some women essentially are going to go through because they haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
And you know, the information, thankfully now, obviously it's, you know, it's coming to the point where the information is out there and people are talking about it freely. And you know, we've got the likes of Davina McCall, who's making a big thing about it with her you know, with her abilities as being in the limelight as such.
Yes.
But it's it's an unknown. It's still an unknown for so many women, and that's so wrong in the 21st century. Nothing like that should be an unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more that we can talk about it, hence the reason for this podcast being set up, and share it
Yeah,
amongst other women, the better, for sure.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And there's so much technology now, isn't there, these days?
Yes.
And I am something of a tech dinosaur, but there is so much now, and things can be made so easily available. And yeah, it's just a really important part of a woman's life that should be it should just be completely normal for people to talk about it. It shouldn't be a taboo anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree. So, alongside your HRT, then, Rachel, did you make any other
Mhm.
changes to your lifestyle, like with your diet or your exercise?
Um, well, I suppose in a roundabout way, I sort of did. I mean, essentially, during
Hmm.
lockdown, I, like many other people, put on a bit of weight. And I sort of got to the point where I thought, you know what, this is no good now. I need to sort this out. And this was all around the same kind of time as my HRT kind of just starting to properly have
Yeah.
an effect. And I'm not sure whether the weight that I had put on was partially down to lockdown and partially down to that point in your life where you do end up with that kind of middle tire, I
Yeah.
suppose they call it, don't they? Because your hormones are all over the place and it is harder to lose weight. But I actually found that I'm quite a stubborn person. And when I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it. If I say I'm going to do it, then it gets done. And I think I woke up one morning thinking, right, that's it, I'm done now because I'm the heaviest I've ever been, and I really need to get shot
Hmm.
at this. And I was super strict for 6 months on one particular diet. I was so strict, and I managed to lose about a stone and a half. I was like, no, I still need to lose another stone and a half. But I'd kind of stopped, and the diet wasn't doing anything. And I was like, no, something else has got to work. And I kind of, you know how you trawl the internet looking for, you know, the right kind of diet for you and one that's not going to cost a fortune. And I happened to stumble across a kind of fasting thing, and one that was essentially, supposedly, particularly good for menopausal women. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll give it a try and see what happens. And it was brilliant. And I literally, I stopped eating at 6 o'clock in the evening. I stopped eating. That's it. So I eat essentially whatever I want, but I was being a bit more careful about the whatever. And I stopped eating after 6 p.m. And and within the following 6 months, I got rid of the rest of the weight. And actually, I've managed to keep it off because I tend to now. I'm not as strict as I was, but I do tend to try and not eat anything after about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I'm at a healthy weight now. I'm not overweight. I mean, I'm not skinny. I would never want to be skinny. But I'm at a healthy weight for me, and I feel much more confident in myself and in my body now. And I've managed to kind of, you know, keep that curtailed. And I'm not sure whether, I guess because I am postmenopausal now and my hormones are kind of more on a level, whether that has made a difference or whether it's just circumstantial, I don't know. But I'm certainly happier now than I have been in terms of what I look like, and how I feel about, you know, my body. But I think the only other thing that I did was I started keeping a journal, which I did, like I said earlier, right in the very beginning, because I kept forgetting things and because my emotions were all over the place. And I kept a journal, and that was massively, massively helpful for me. And also, actually, it was helpful for the GP when I went, because I took it with me and I said, look, this is what's been happening. You know, over the past X amount of months, this happened, and this happened. And I noted it all down, because there's no way my head was going to remember it all.
Oh, I feel you there, Rachel.
But yeah, they're probably the only two things that I did really that I've changed. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I can't remember what I did last week. Never mind what I would have done months ago. So
Oh, yeah, no.
excellent. Okay. So, is there anything now that you've gone through this, obviously menopause journey, is there anything that you would advise other women who are about to go through menopause or who is or are currently going through menopause?
Um, I yeah, and I have done. I said earlier, I set up a
Hmm.
Facebook group. Oh well, just over a year ago actually. For normalizing the menopause. And the first thing I say to anybody that says, "Oh, I'm going through this. I don't know what it is," blah blah blah, is I say, write it all down. Keep a journal. Start keeping a journal. Make note of what your symptoms are and when they're happening, and give yourself a couple of months to get a good kind of amount written so that you can see if there's any pattern,
Yes.
and then to go and see your family planning or menopause specialist GP, and take it with you, because that's essentially your evidence. That's what's going on. That's what's happening in your life
Yeah.
currently. And it's that list of things that will also help the GP to kind of decide, well, could it be, because it's important to remember that it's not always going to be
Yeah.
menopause.
Absolutely.
It could be, a whole host of different things. But if you've got it there, and and also for me, I think it was another way of getting stuff out of my
Hmm.
head. So in terms of my emotions being all crazy and all over the place, if I it's like tricking your brain. If you write it down, it's not in your head anymore.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I definitely say that. But also, things like for instance your podcast, or finding other podcasts that are either medically endorsed, or that are people that are sharing experiences, so that you can feel in yourself that you're not the only one going through it, because it can definitely be a massively lonely place to
Yeah.
be, especially if you don't have people around you that have either been through it or kind of have more of an understanding of it. It can be a very lonely
Hmm.
place, I think. So I think it's important to definitely keep a journal, seek others, find your tribe
Yeah.
essentially, and talk about it. It's so important to talk about it, because I think the more stuff you keep bottled up, the worse it gets for yourself. And like I said before, it really it's coming away from being a taboo subject now, and people are starting to be more open about it. So I think definitely keep a journal and talk, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant advice there, Rachel. I think yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think writing a journal just takes all the guesswork away from the GP, because I mean they've only got so much to work with, with the nice guidelines and so on.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like you said, it could be something else other than what menopause going on. It could be hormonal of some other type.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know thyroid, overactive and underactive thyroids can give off apparently very similar kind of symptoms. So it's not always going to be menopause, but it just might be.
Yes, absolutely.
So
wonderful, Rachel. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that good information with us. It's been very insightful indeed. I think we shall end it here, and I will speak to you again soon,
okay.
Rachel. Thank you so much.
Okey-dokey. No problems. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to Menopause Unplugged. I hope you found the conversation to be informative, enlightening, and empowering. Remember, menopause is a natural part of a woman's life journey, but it doesn't have to be a lonely one. Whether you're experiencing perimenopause or menopause, my menopause coaching program can provide reassurance and guidance. Please do reach out to me through my contact details on the show description. And until next time, take care.